On the day my son, Kevin, was beaten to the point of being admitted to the ICU, I happened to overhear a conversation between my husband, Commander Ethan, and his subordinate. The subordinate's voice was filled with hesitation. "Do you really want to bury Kevin's case, sir? He's your son. Is that right? If you want to help Clara, just tell your sister-in-law the truth. She's not unreasonable. Why hide it?" Ethan's voice was calm, each word distinct. "Clara is not just a martyr's wife, she's also my first love. I can't let her lose another child. Jane is strong-willed. If she knew that Clara's son was the one who hit Kevin, she would definitely cause a scene at the military district. It's better to temporarily postpone the case until mediation while she's busy taking care of our son. Once things settle down, she won't make such a fuss." I remained silent, pretending not to have heard anything, and returned to Kevin's room. At the hearing, the other side distorted the facts. The entire hall praised the deputy commander for knowing how to prioritize greater justice over personal family ties. As the mediation results were about to be announced, I slowly stood up. "I wish to change my request. No more mediation, just a formal report. I will personally seek justice for my son." It was a sweltering summer, yet I felt an icy coldness. In the hospital corridor, Ethan's voice remained calm. Even if she knows, she wouldn't dare ask for a divorce. He was right. Ever since our son, Kevin, was born, I had willingly lived like a military widow and had never once mentioned divorce. That man knew perfectly well that I loved him deeply, that I couldn't bear to give up the title of a military wife, and even less did I want to shatter the image of a heroic father in our son's eyes. Advisor Zhao, his subordinate, chuckled dismissively. "Who would have thought, Commander Ethan, after all these years since high school graduation, you still haven't forgotten Clara, your first love. It's understandable, she's the only blemish on your exemplary record. I still remember when you two were publicly reprimanded for what happened in the teacher's lounge. She even dared to ask the entire school, 'Is my lipstick well behaved?' Hilarious." The laughter was incessant, and my face grew paler. Adultery. I had never imagined that word could be associated with Ethan, a strict soldier who always maintained an upright image. A man who insisted that even the water cup I used be washed separately had once secretly roamed the school grounds with another woman. The disgust within me surged, inexpressible in words. I rushed to the restroom, retching until only bile remained. My son was still in the ICU. I couldn't eat or sleep. Every day, I had to shuttle between the military hospital, the family council, and the commander-in-chief. Meanwhile, Ethan, as both a father and a commander who should have been protecting the law and the rights of military children, was leisurely reminiscing about old times with his subordinate. It was truly ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. When I emerged from the restroom, I saw only him in the corridor. Glancing at my swollen eyes and gaunt face, he calmly said, "The current chain of evidence is controversial. The family council hearing must be postponed. Your urgency is useless." Another excuse. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my flesh. My heart was as cold as ice. If I hadn't accidentally overheard Advisor Zhao's conversation, I might still be dreaming, still trying to convince myself of my husband's so-called noble act of helping a martyr's child. I took a step closer, struggling to control my revulsion. "Ethan, what do you want me to do to open the hearing?" He frowned. Before he could make an excuse about the military's reputation or the greater good, I scoffed. "If you agree to hold a public hearing, I'll sign the divorce papers." Ethan was visibly surprised, unable to believe I had uttered the word divorce. But immediately after, his expression darkened and his tone became cold. "Jane, if every military wife were like you, exploiting personal feelings to pressure the organization for personal gain, where would military discipline and dignity stand? Kevin's fight at school is largely due to your lax upbringing, turning him into a weak, sensitive child." I was stunned, my pupils contracting, unable to believe what I had just heard. Clearly, he was abusing his power to cover up the incident, treating school bullying as child's play, and forcing the complaint into mediation. Yet now, all responsibility was dumped on me and our son, claiming I didn't know how to raise him and that he had character issues. I wanted to question him, but he turned and walked away, taking my last hope with him. I sat speechless in the corridor. My phone rang. It was Lawyer Scott, whom I had just contacted. Like previous lawyers, his voice sounded somewhat awkward over the phone. Ms. Jane, I'm afraid I cannot take this complaint. Perhaps you should find someone else. I gripped the phone, feeling a metallic taste of blood in my mouth. Lawyer Scott, is the military putting pressure on you? Ms. Jane, if you understand, then that's it. The call ended quickly, but now I understood clearly. In this entire military district, the only person with enough power to make all experienced lawyers specializing in military family rights shy away, apart from my husband, the highest commander, was no one else. Calmly, I sent a message to Lawyer Scott. Lawyer Scott, if you cannot take the complaint, then surely you can represent me in a divorce case. I want your help with a divorce. I returned to Kevin's hospital room. Although he was out of critical danger, he was still heavily bandaged, his cheekbones sunken, looking like a fragile sapling ravaged by a storm. Seeing me, his eyes lit up, then quickly dimmed. Mom, Dad has left, hasn't he? I choked back tears, trying to reassure him. Be good, Kevin, Dad is busy with work, he'll resolve everything. Before I finished speaking, a gentle yet grating voice echoed from outside. Sister Jane. I immediately turned around. Clara was holding a basket of fruit with dark edges and a bouquet of white chrysanthemums. She was accompanied by Brian, the one who had pushed my son down the stairs. The mother and son walked into the hospital room casually. Finally, I get to see you. I mentioned mediation between the two children before. Have you thought about it? Her voice was soft, but her eyes held a look of pity. Brian looked at Kevin with a humiliating gesture, his face full of arrogance. Kevin trembled, fear evident in his eyes. I immediately stood in front of my son's bed, my whole body trembling with rage. Clara frowned, feigning helplessness and injustice. Sister Jane, don't get so agitated. It's normal for children to have a small scuffle. Why make such a big deal, making him uncomfortable? My eyes welled up, my nails dug deep into my palms. A scuffle? My son was pushed down the stairs, suffered a head injury, and fractured ribs, and you call that a scuffle? Clara's fake smile immediately vanished. I looked straight at her, each word clear. You want mediation? Fine, let your son try the ICU. Clara immediately shielded her son, but the boy peered out defiantly. Mom, Uncle Ethan said there's no need to be afraid. He promised to protect us. The words Uncle Ethan made me lose my composure. I swung my arm and slapped the boy. The loud slap resonated with the boy's cries. How dare you hit my son? I won't let you get away with this. Clara immediately snarled, lunged forward, grabbed my hair, and scratched my cheek with her nails. I was exhausted from worrying about my son for days. Her attack left me dizzy, and I collapsed to the ground. My son on the bed screamed, "Stop hitting my mom, Mom." The violent movement caused his wound to reopen, blood soaking through the white bandage. When the security guards arrived to pull us apart, Clara's hair was only slightly disheveled. Meanwhile, my face was bruised and my clothes were torn. In the interrogation room, I firmly demanded a forensic examination and prosecution, but the officer in charge of mediation suddenly changed his attitude. They determined that Clara was simply too worried as a mother and demanded I apologize. I jumped up, dragging the chair across the floor with a grating sound. But when I saw the officer nodding and listening to his phone, repeatedly saying, "Yes, yes," all my energy drained away. Ethan, it was Ethan again. He truly didn't want his fallen comrade's widow to suffer any disadvantage. My throat felt constricted. I could barely breathe. Because I refused to apologize, I was locked up for 3 days as a disciplinary measure. These 3 days felt like an eternity. I lived in despair. Occasionally, I recalled his drunken words from years ago, "I'll take responsibility. Let's get married." I once thought it was a destined gift for my unrequited love, a beautiful beginning for our military marriage. Everything turned out to be an elaborate act, the prelude to my becoming a backdrop for his perfect image. 3 days later, I left the detention facility, looking withered. The first thing I did was rush to the hospital. But I was informed that Kevin had been moved to a regular ward as his injuries had stabilized, and that area was very crowded. I found him huddled on the bed near the door. He embraced me and cried hysterically. "Mom, Dad said I misbehaved and caused trouble at school. That's why I was bullied. Mom, I'm a good boy." His cries were like knives stabbing deep into my heart. I hugged him tighter, trying to swallow the fresh blood that welled up on my tongue. After soothing him to sleep, I walked out, seething with anger. As I passed a special ward, I unexpectedly saw a familiar back. It was Ethan. He was holding Clara's son very naturally. On the bed, Clara's mother tightly held her daughter's hand, looking at Ethan with hopeful eyes. "Ethan, Clara has suffered so much. Luckily, you care for her." The usually cold man now nodded gently, his voice becoming amicable. "Auntie, don't worry. I also bear some responsibility for what happened years ago. As long as I'm here, no one will bully them." My heart felt as if a sharp shard of glass had pierced it, a painful numbness. I recoiled half a step, took out my phone, and recorded this warm scene. "Ethan, if you can't let go of this responsibility, then let me help you bring it to light." Half a month later, the hearing was postponed again, citing the need to verify evidence. I had anticipated it, but my heart still ached. Today, Kevin returned to school. I could only suppress my emotions and force a smile. At the school gate, Kevin clutched his backpack strap and quietly asked, "Mom, is Brian still at school? Did the uncles punish him?" I knelt and hugged him. "Yes, I promise that those who hurt you will pay the price, including the father who no longer stands by your side." Just one day after school, I received a call from Kevin's homeroom teacher. Kevin had been beaten in the restroom by Brian and several other boys and forced to kneel. I immediately rushed to the hospital. In the emergency room, Ethan had his back to the door on the phone, dismissing the incident as children playing too roughly. "Don't let this get out. Clara is very panicked. Send a female officer to comfort her." My emotions surged. I stepped forward and slapped him hard across the face. Slap! The loud sound immediately ended the call. Ethan staggered back, a clear handprint on his face, his expression shifting from surprise to anger. "Jane, are you crazy? This is a hospital." I ran to my son's bedside, looked at his bruised face and frightened eyes, and despair erupted. I screamed, "Get out, I don't need your charade." His face darkened, he took a deep breath. "Fine, I'll go, but I'll handle this and give you an explanation." Explanation? Looking at his retreating back, I could only scoff. That afternoon, I personally went to the Education Bureau to file a complaint. Soon after, Brian, who was at school, was summoned for investigation. When Clara heard the news, she immediately came to the hospital with Ethan. As soon as she saw me, she knelt, tears streaming down her face. "Sister Jane, I was wrong. Please withdraw the complaint. Brian is still young. He'll be terrified if he's interrogated. Please." I looked up at Ethan. He pressed his lips together, a fleeting look of distress in his eyes, but I noticed it. How ridiculous. My son lay in a hospital bed with a bruised face, and he showed distress for the one who caused the injuries. Ethan pulled Clara to her feet, looked at me with cold eyes, "Withdraw the complaint immediately." I refused to yield, I couldn't. His eyes darkened. He pulled out his phone to send a text message. Less than a minute later, I received an urgent call from my superior. "Jane, do you have any conflict with anyone? Someone from above called down saying you are suspected of exploiting welfare resources. Your work is temporarily suspended for investigation." My ears rang. I clenched my phone, looked up, and met his calm gaze. His voice was cold. "This is according to regulations. If you don't withdraw, the investigation will continue." I couldn't go to jail. What would happen to my son? A feeling of helplessness overwhelmed me. Finally, like a zombie, I said, "Fine, I'll withdraw." That afternoon, Brian was sent home. From a distance, I saw Ethan's car parked below the staff quarters, and Clara led her son towards him. He raised his hand as if to pat the boy's head, but stopped and only gently patted his shoulder. The scene looked like a family reunion. 3 days passed, and Ethan did not keep his promise. I was not reinstated. Instead, I received a notice of contract termination. To make matters worse, Clara was directly recruited to work at the military's service center with a permanent position. A job many military families coveted, he bestowed it upon her so easily. He didn't even bother to find a reason. I didn't even have the strength to ask any more questions. Once he came home to get documents. Seeing me arranging Kevin's old books, he suddenly said, "Don't overthink it. Clara is a martyr's wife. It's reasonable for the organization to care for her." He stepped closer, as if to touch my shoulder. I immediately recoiled, causing a glass of water to fall. The sound of shattered glass rang out. I looked up with cold, sarcastic eyes. "Ethan, do you think a few explanations will make me a good military wife again? Dream on." His face darkened. He slammed the door and left. Hearing his footsteps fade, I slowly sat down to pick up the broken pieces. My fingers were cut and bleeding, but I felt no pain. After cleaning my hands, I took out my old phone, hidden deep inside, and called Lawyer Scott. My voice was calm, not a hint of distress. "Lawyer Scott, this is Jane. I have prepared all the evidence." As the hearing approached, a maliciously edited video went viral on the internal network. In the video, a frail Kevin was distorted into a bully, chasing Brian, with a shocking description. "Commander's son abuses power to oppress others, slandering a martyr's child." Overnight, public opinion completely shifted. My personal information was dug up, and in the military family group, a barrage of anonymous criticisms appeared, accusing me of being unreasonable, wanting to destroy the deputy commander's future. My son was suspended from school. I made countless phone calls, either ignored or hung up on. For the first time, I clearly felt the insignificance and despair of an ordinary military family against the combination of power and public opinion. Ethan called, his tone indifferent, almost sarcastic. "Withdraw the accusation, agree to mediation, and everything will return to normal." His composure ignited my anger. I yelled into the phone, "Ethan, are you still human? You dare to slander your own son for that woman?" After a long silence, he sighed. "Jane, I just want a peaceful home. Don't be so stubborn." A peaceful home. I immediately threw the phone against the wall. My son stood at the door, pale, his voice trembling. "Mom, Dad doesn't want us anymore, does he? In the video, everyone says I'm a bad child." I wiped my tears, hugging him tightly. "Kevin, don't worry. Those who lie are wrong. Mom will prove you're innocent." The video's impact spread throughout the military family residential area. Neighbors shunned us, our door was pelted with trash and covered with abusive notes. In the middle of the night, someone kicked the door and cursed, "Get out!" Ethan hadn't come home for 2 days. I hugged my son all night, not daring to close my eyes, staring at the door. On the day of the hearing, I led my son downstairs. Many people had gathered in the corridor, whispering. Outside the agency building, military families from other units and the media were held back behind security fences. Some shouted at us, their eyes full of hostility. I shielded my son, walking quickly towards the entrance. Suddenly, a rotten tomato flew towards us, splattering on my shoulder, juice everywhere. I immediately shielded my son behind me. A hard object grazed my forehead, causing a dull ache. Just then, Ethan's car entered through a private lane. He stepped out in a neat military uniform, naturally helping Clara out of the car. Clara lowered her head, tucking her hair, looking very fragile. We met at the entrance. Our eyes met. He glanced at the stain on my shoulder and the red swelling on my forehead. His cold gaze exuded a composure almost cruel, as if savoring my suffering, which he believed I brought upon myself. The hearing was held in a conference room with internal audio and live broadcast capabilities. As soon as the live stream began, the comment window scrolled furiously. "The evidence is clear. Still trying to deny it? Commander Ethan is truly unlucky. That unruly child must have an unreasonable mother. Bullying a martyr's child, what a disgrace." On the platform sat unit leaders and disciplinary representatives. Ethan sat beside them, his face very serious, as if detached from all the surrounding noise. The chairperson began the session. Clara burst into tears before she could even speak. The edited video was shown, accompanied by her choked voice. "Brian and I just want justice. I was bullied, and I'll suffer psychological trauma. We don't demand compensation, only hope Comrade Jane and her son will publicly apologize." Brian tried to hug his mother, looking frightened. "He didn't push me, he hit me first." Kevin suddenly stood up, his face red, pointing at Brian, tears welling up in his eyes. The boy looked at Ethan as if pleading for help. "Order," the chairperson roared, banging the table. Kevin flinched, then returned to my side, clutching my coat with his small hand, visibly upset. Clara, with her rational and magnanimous demeanor, won everyone's sympathy. In the audience, people whispered, "I heard she used tactics to force Commander Ethan to marry her years ago. Like mother, like son. A martyr's widow has it tough, yet she's so generous." Someone even quietly chimed in, "She must apologize, definitely apologize." The shouts grew louder, many eyes piercing me and my son like needles, filled with judgment and contempt. Ethan remained seated upright, his gaze calm, as if everything was unrelated to him, yet he held all the power. A moment later, the chairperson asked me, "Comrade Jane, do you have anything to present or add?" I didn't answer immediately, calmly looking around the hall, my gaze stopping on Ethan's composed face. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly, as if he thought I had run out of options. Seeing this, the chairperson prepared to conclude, "If there's nothing further." Before he could finish, my lawyer burst into the conference room. I offered a cold smile, each word clear. Chairperson, please stop for a moment. I wish to change the nature of this hearing. I accuse. As soon as I finished, the entire hall fell silent. Ethan, who had always maintained his composure, showed a crack for the first time, his brows tightly furrowed. The political director sternly said, "Comrade Jane, how can you arbitrarily change the subject of the hearing?" I looked directly at him. "Mr. Chairperson, if we don't clearly identify the issue of power interference, discussions about children's conflicts cannot lead to the truth. I propose changing the object of questioning. Otherwise, I cannot present important evidence." This threat caused a stir in the audience. Comments on the internal network also erupted fiercely. Seeing defeat, she drags the leadership into it. How insane. Commander Ethan is so unlucky to deal with someone like this. Disrupting order needs strict handling. I felt a chill. Compared to the image of my son in the ICU and 10 years of solitary marriage, these gazes and criticisms meant nothing. Clara promptly stood up, her eyes brimming with tears, her voice trembling. "Sister Jane, I understand you're worried about your son. I don't need you to apologize anymore." She hugged Brian tightly. But Brian is truly terrified. He has nightmares every night. He just needs Kevin to say it's okay to feel more at ease, can he? "After that, my son and I will disappear and not bother you anymore." Her feigned humility made me feel nauseous. Ethan shouted, "Jane, pay attention to the situation. This is an official hearing, not a place for you to prolong an argument. Get back to the point immediately." I looked up directly at him, a cold smile gracing my lips. "The point, Deputy Commander? You always speak of strict discipline and caring for military families. So why do you only see me causing trouble? My son was pushed down the stairs, almost died. Did you see that? He was slandered as a bully by a fake video, criticized on social media. Did you see that? The first time he was subjected to violence, you suppressed it. The second time, which was more serious, you called it children playing too roughly. You prevented me from hiring a lawyer, even made me lose my job, but you promoted Clara. Is this the discipline and fairness you uphold? Is this the explanation you once promised?" Ethan's face turned pale, his lips tightly pressed. For a moment, he couldn't say anything. For the first time, he was publicly challenged. The mask of the exemplary officer cracked. The murmurs in the audience grew louder, filled with doubt and surprise. In the livestream comments, signs of unrest appeared. Wait, is Commander Ethan favoring Clara and her son? If the video is fake, this is serious. Lawyer Scott quickly seized the opportunity, stepping forward, his tone clear and strong. "Mr. Chairperson, distinguished leaders, the current process has serious shortcomings. It hasn't truly addressed the nature of power abuse. I formally request, on behalf of the defendant, to shift the focus of the investigation to Comrade Ethan to examine whether he has violated discipline." He turned to Ethan and declared confidently, "If there is no need to change, it is because the evidence truly cannot be verified within the current framework. We will request a temporary suspension of the hearing and reserve the right to report directly to the higher disciplinary committee under our real names." These words used their own reasoning to rebut previous excuses like insufficient evidence and need for further investigation that they had used to delay. Ethan clenched his hands into fists on his lap. The atmosphere in the conference room immediately became tense. All eyes turned to the chairperson. Ethan's fingers gripped the edge of the table, white-knuckled. The hearing now hung like a sword over his head. If prolonged, the personal interests hidden beneath his military uniform would be exposed. But he had no way out. Everyone's eyes were on him, and this livestream was connected to the entire military district. To refuse at this moment would only further prove his fear and guilt. After a moment, he took a deep breath, uttering each word through gritted teeth, agreed to include Ethan's conduct within the scope of review. Lawyer Scott immediately stepped forward, his voice decisive. "Based on that, we would like to add to the accusation. Ethan, during his marriage, violated military ethics, led an improper lifestyle, abused his power to cover for and condone specific individuals, exploited his position to suppress the rights of his wife and biological son, and seriously violated personal responsibility." The hall immediately erupted. Ethan jumped up, knocking over his teacup, pointing at me, his voice distorted. "Jane, this is a serious place. You must be responsible for every word you say." The listening area buzzed with commotion and comments flooded in. "Is this a moral issue? Why would a commander behave like this? So that's why he was so good to Clara and her son. So that's it. If that's true, it's very serious. All eyes turned to Clara. She was pale, her entire body trembling. I pointed at her, each word spoken very clearly. The person Ethan maintained an improper relationship with and protected for so long as her, Clara. You're fabricating? Ethan lunged in front of me, grabbed my wrist, and whispered a threat. She and I are just old classmates. I was just taking care of a martyr's family. You're angry and talking nonsense. Explain yourself clearly. Don't harm this family, Kevin's future, and the unit's reputation. I pushed his hand away, scoffing, noble camaraderie, then let everyone see how this exemplary officer cared. I signaled to Lawyer Scott. On the screen, each piece of evidence appeared sequentially. A secretly recorded video from the hospital. Ethan gently promising Clara's mother that no one would bully them, along with intimate gestures. Transaction history over the past 3 years. Ethan had transferred large sums of money to Clara dozens of times, with notes like living expenses, talent class tuition, happy birthday. Screenshots of hostile messages from Clara. Ethan always remembers my son and me. You're just a decoration. Brian wanted a gaming console. He bought it immediately. Your son is in the hospital, and he's annoyed by just one question. The evidence was presented clearly for all to see. The atmosphere was completely silent. Then, anger and shouts erupted in the live stream. A beast who doesn't care about his own son in danger. A hypocrite exploiting the name of caring for a martyr's family to satisfy personal desires. Pity for Ms. Jane and little Kevin. How have they lived these past 10 years? Ethan stood frozen, his face ashen, his mouth open but unable to utter a word. Clara collapsed, covering her face and crying, but no one felt pity, only scorn and anger. The audience seats completely erupted, shouts of indignation almost bringing down the ceiling. Ethan, get out, you don't deserve to wear that uniform. Clara, that wicked woman, pretending to be a martyr's widow, a thorough investigation is needed. She must be removed from the military. Clara suddenly stood up, screaming loudly, no, it's all Jane fabricating. We are innocent. Ethan tried to maintain his composure, saying seriously, this is a false accusation. You absolutely cannot listen to one-sided remarks. Before he could finish, the conference room door opened. A group of disciplinary officers from the military district entered, their expressions cold, heading straight for Ethan. The brigadier general leading them presented documents, his voice cold. Comrade Ethan, we formally announce the opening of an investigation. Please come with us immediately. Ethan looked as if he had been struck by lightning, his face pale, staggering backwards, stammering, this is slander. I have rendered many meritorious services. Take him away, the brigadier general ordered curtly. 2 officers immediately stepped forward to control him. One pulled out handcuffs. Click! The cold metal was locked onto his wrists. Ethan trembled, lowering his head to look at the handcuffs, his eyes vacant, muttering, I'm not wrong, I just wanted to care, I didn't do anything wrong. The hearing is temporarily adjourned. The next announcement will be made later, the brigadier general said, then signaled for them to take him away. As they passed me, Ethan struggled to stop, turning his head to look at me. His eyes were complex anger, resentment, confusion, perhaps even a hint of regret. His lips moved, wanting to say something, but in the end, no words came out. He was forcibly led away. Not long after, news of Ethan's dismissal and investigation spread like wildfire. His reputation and career were destroyed in an instant. The murky relationships between him and Clara, along with the favors from years past, were successively exposed. Their names were branded with ignominy. A week later, the decision regarding Brian's school bullying incident was announced. The truth was revealed. He was sent to a reform school. Clara was fired from her job at the military service center, and for perjury, she was temporarily detained and fined. The image of the innocent martyr's widow was completely shattered, despised and reviled by everyone. With no way out, she came to my house, her hair disheveled, her face wan. As soon as she saw me, she knelt, tightly hugging my pant leg and crying. Sister Jane, I was wrong, please forgive me. Please help Brian, don't send him to reform school, he'll be ruined. Please. I paused, looking at her with cold eyes. I gently pushed her hand away and said, begging, you should go to the detention center to beg. It was Ethan who spoiled you to the point where you didn't recognize the seriousness of your actions. It was because of you that he agreed to ignore all rules. The price you both caused, bear it yourselves. Having said that, I didn't look back, turned and walked into the building, leaving her tragic cries behind. After investigation, all accusations against Ethan, such as abuse of power, were verified as true. The military court sentenced him to imprisonment, simultaneously expelling him from the military and stripping him of all positions. Before entering prison, he asked to see my son and me one last time. I hesitated but agreed, wanting to show Kevin his true face to cut off all hope. At the prison, through the glass, he wore a prison uniform, his hair already gray, his face haggard. The hero I once respected was now just an empty shell. As soon as we met, he immediately picked up the phone, his voice hoarse. "Jane, I realize I was wrong. Clara and I were just guilt. Her husband died saving me, but you were always in my heart, I just didn't know how to show it." I listened to him silently, my heart unmoved. 10 years of coldness, his favoritism when my son was severely injured, the slanders during the hearing, could a few weak excuses erase all of it? When I didn't answer, he looked at Kevin, his voice almost pleading. "Kevin, Dad was wrong. When Dad gets out of prison, I'll make amends to you. I'll be with you every day. Can you forgive Dad?" Kevin nestled into me, his small face showing clear tension. He said in one breath, "Dad isn't a good dad. You made Mom cry and me hurt. I don't need you anymore." Ethan became dazed, the light in his eyes extinguished, tears streaming down his face, his lips moving but unable to say anything. I stood up, holding my son's hand, looking at him one last time. All the love and hatred in my heart also faded into silence. "Ethan, this is the end." Having said that, I turned and walked away without looking back. Leaving the prison, the dazzling sunlight shone down. I took a deep breath, as if 10 years of gloom in my heart had been swept away by the cool breeze. Soon after, the divorce decree was issued. I sold the apartment in the military quarters, a place filled with cold memories, then took Kevin to settle in a peaceful coastal town in the south. The new house wasn't large but was bright and warm. Kevin transferred to a new school and quickly adapted, his smile growing brighter. After school, he would rush into my arms, chattering about happy things at school. Sometimes he would suddenly hug me tightly and say, "Mom, I'm so happy now." In such moments, my heart truly felt at peace. The past 10 years were like a prolonged nightmare. Now I have awakened. The sun is beautiful, the wind gently blows. I hold Kevin's hand, walking home. His clear laughter is like a silver chime. I know that my son and my truly new life begins here, stable and peaceful.